Welcome. Today we take a look at the filming locations for the 1991 cult classic Out for Justice, starring Steven Segal, William Forsythe, Jerry Orbach, Gina Gershon, and Juliana Margulies in one of her first roles. So kick back, hang out a little bit while we go on this journey and see what we can dig up on today's episode of Where'd They Film That? We begin our journey today on 18th Avenue between 86th Street and New Utrecht Avenue. As the scene opens up, we see Bobby and his family walking down the street enjoying a nice day out. They make their way down the block coming from this direction and continue along down the block until they get to the fruit and vegetable store, which is at this location. While Bobby is waiting for his wife and kids to get out of the fruit and vegetable store, at the opposite side of the block we see Richie walking up in Bobby's direction. At the last second, Bobby sees Richie approaching with a gun, but it's too late. Richie shoots him. This all takes place in this area. Richie puts one last shot in Bobby before walking away to the waiting car, while Richie's wife looks on in horror at what just happened. Steven Segal's character Gino arrives at the scene in a patrol car, immediately gets out, walks over to Bobby's wife to console her. If you look when they're embracing, you could see some of the building's facade still looks similar to the way it did when they were filming back in 1990. Gino examines his fallen friend's body before having a conversation with Jerry Orbach's character, Captain Donziger. And that conversation takes place in this area right here. It's here we also find out that Richie had murdered another person, and that took place at the next location we're about to visit. Our next location takes us to 18th Avenue and New Utrecht Avenue. It is here where Richie pulls over and blocks a cross street. While pulled over, another car approaches wanting to pass. After some words were exchanged, Richie gets out of the car, approaches the woman in the driver's seat. More words were exchanged and he shoots her. That all takes place on this corner right here. After killing the woman, they ditch their car and begin to walk in this direction here. Why they didn't get back in their car and take off, I have no idea. Maybe they needed a little exercise. The next location we're going to visit is over on 17th Avenue and 77th Street. It is here where we see Gino come up the block, make the turn on the corner, and is greeted by one of the gangsters that is sitting outside. Now, at the time of filming, this actually was a cafe and it was open for quite a few years, eventually closing down. In its place now is a dessert place. Some changes have been made to the interior since the time of filming, and it looks nothing like the way it did at the time of filming. Our journey now takes us to 86th Street and Narrows Avenue. It is this location where we see Gino driving on 86th Street, and he passes this house right here on the corner. As Gino continues up 86th Street, he notices a station wagon with a pretty insulting sticker on the back. At that time, the driver throws out a garbage bag. Gino stops short, gets out, opens the bag out, only to reveal that it's a little puppy in there. He looks on as the driver continues going up 86th Street. This all happens in front of these houses right here. Our next location brings us to 61st Street and 3rd Avenue. It is here where Gino comes down this block, makes this turn, and pulls up to his friend Piccolino. They continue their conversation, and you can see the different angles of the backgrounds. Buildings that are behind Steven Segal's car, the building in back of Piccolino. If you look down the block, you see the highway overpass, and you see that in the shot. This scene leads into the next location that we're going to visit, which is probably one of the bigger sequences of the movie. Our journey now takes us to 46th Street and 3rd Avenue. Richie pulls up in a brand new car, I may add, and is asking for a couple of extra muscle or guys, bodies, whatever you want to call it, to help him out. At this moment, Gino pulls up, sees Richie, takes off down the block this direction, makes the turn on this corner under the expressway, and the chase is on. As the chase continues, there's one point where the car Richie is in causes an accident at this intersection right here. You could tell it's this location because of the two houses on the corner pretty much look the same as they did in the film. It doesn't look like much has changed over the years at this location. A good portion of this chase sequence was shot on 3rd Avenue between approximately 39th Street to 65th Street. They make a turn at this corner right here and go into the more industrial section of Brooklyn. During this point of the chase, we can see some noticeable buildings, such as many of the buildings on this block. And also, if you look behind them, there is that building with the different colored structures in the center. It's at this point of the chase where they're able to make a little space between themselves and Gino, with the little help of a truck. It is also this point where you see Richie driving up a block, and that is this location right here. It's a few blocks away from the previous location. It's also in this scene where this classic line is born.
We haven't lost him yet. Let's take him for some pork chops.
The chase scene ends at this location, 52nd Street and 5th Avenue. It is a pizzeria, but in Out for Justice, it was the pork store. It's here where Richie comes down the block, makes the turn on the corner. As he's walking into the pork store, a guy's coming up towards him, sees him with a gun in his hand, and immediately goes in a different direction. And that whole sequence takes place on this corner right here. It is at the pork store where Richie convinces a couple of guys to hang back and kind of hold off Gino long enough for them to get away. But it is also here where they go to get some ammunition, because everybody knows you go to the pork store to get ammo. Gino arrives at the pork store, walks in, and is immediately greeted by one of the goons who tries to jump him. That doesn't end well for the guy. Gino then continues to make short work of the other goons using bats, meat cutter, salami, pepperoni, you name it. That all happens right here. One of the ways I was able to match up this location was by the buildings across the street. They look very similar to the way they did when the movie was being filmed. Our next location takes us to 87th Street between 4th and 5th Avenue. It is here where Gino goes to visit Richie's sister, who's played by Gina Gershon. This location was an actual club called Pastels that was around in the 80s and 90s. It is at this location where I believe the interiors of the nightclub scenes were shot. Since then, it has been torn down and is now currently some form of office space or apartments. One thing I am not sure of is whether or not the exteriors were filmed here. Structurally, the way it looked outside, I do believe that part was filmed at another location. Our final location takes us to the famous Coney Island boardwalk. It is here where Steven Segal's character Gino runs into the gentleman that was driving the station wagon. The guy happens to bump into Gino's wife, and that's what catches Gino's attention. He sees the guy walking up to the station wagon with the rude sticker on it. The station wagon is parked right in front of this location right here. Approaches him. They both have some words that pretty much does not end well for the guy, because it leads to him getting kicked by Gino in the nuts and then pissed on by the dog that he threw out the window. So that didn't end well for that guy. That all happened on the boardwalk at these locations right here. The movie ends with Gino, his wife, and the dog walking off into the boardwalk sunset. And that brings us to the end of our journey. I hope everybody enjoyed checking out some of the locations for Steven Seagal's classic Outfit Justice. Till next time, thank you for watching another episode of Where'd They Film That?